A buddy of mine swears this happened to him in 2018. He just moved to a new city and wanted to get a small memorial tattoo for his grandfather. He was walking back from work one night when he saw a narrow alley with the neon tattoo sign flickering at the end. The front was an unmarked black door, no name and no logo. But when I went inside, it smelled like antiseptic and ink, and there was a woman at the counter. She smiled and asked what he wanted. He showed his design and she nodded. She led him to the back room. It was spotless but weirdly quiet. There was no music and no buzzing from other chairs. She worked fast, almost too fast. He said it didn't even hurt the way other tattoos do. It felt like it was just a deep coldness under his skin. When she finished, she wrapped it up, took his cash, gave no receipt, and then sent him out. By the time he got back to the main street, the sign wasn't on anymore. He came back the next day in daylight, the door was padlocked and the sign wasn't there anymore. A week later, the tattoo started moving. Not like swelling, but the ink itself. It started shifting. The letters were twisting into words he hadn't chosen. He went to another shop to ask about it. The artist looked at his arm and got pale and said quietly, "Man, you need to get that removed." But even laser sessions didn't work. To this day, the design keeps changing. The last time I saw him, it spelled out a date. The one his grandfather died on. But below it, there was a second date, but he won't tell anyone. It was spring break of my sophomore year, and a bunch of us from the dorm decided to drive 2 towns over to this little shop that does flash days, or in other words, cheap tattoos for walk-ins. The music was blaring and there were people lining up out the door. We'd gone once before and it had been fine. This time, one of my friends, Jenna, wanted a small crescent moon on her wrist. Something simple and cheap, a memory of the trip. We walked in and everything looked normal at first. Same bright posters on the wall and the same neon signs as before. But the artist who called Jenna back wasn't anyone we recognized. He was tall, thin, and pale. He had these weird mirrored sunglasses on, even inside. He told her he had a special blend of ink that would glow under black light. He said it like it was a secret bonus. Jenna laughed and rolled with it. She said the tattoo barely hurt. It just gave her a strange cold feeling under her skin, like when you touch dry ice. He wrapped it, gave her no receipt, and sent her out. By the time we were back at the motel, she was showing it off, saying how cool it looked. 2 nights later, she woke up screaming. Her wrist was burning like it was on fire. The crescent moon was raised like a scar instead of a tattoo, and faint dark lines were radiating out from it under her skin like little veins. We all thought that it was a infection or allergic reaction, but just to be sure, we drove her back to the shop first thing in the morning. This time a different artist was at the desk, an older woman. We described the guy with the sunglasses. She frowned and said no one like that had ever worked there. She showed us a staff photo, but he wasn't on there. Jenna's face went white. Over the next week, the lines on her arm kept spreading. She fainted in class one afternoon. The EMT who came to treat her told her that whatever it was, it didn't look like any allergic reaction he'd seen. She swore she could hear whispering coming from the mark at night. The doctors called it a severe pigment reaction. They tried antihistamines, then steroids, but nothing helped. She ended up having the skin around the tattoo surgically removed. The scar's still there and now she covers it with a watch. But sometimes she says she can feel it pulse, like a second heartbeat. And the creepiest part? Every time she walks past a black light sign, the scar still glows faintly, like the ink is still there under the skin. This story came from a road trip conversation with an artist in New Mexico. He'd been tattooing for nearly 20 years, and he said this one still gave him nightmares. A man walked into his shop one afternoon asking for a portrait of his young daughter on his upper arm. He brought a clear photo from her last birthday, her hair in pigtails and a big smile. He didn't seem drunk or strung out, just a little bit off. He kept glancing at the door, like he was listening for someone. They talked through size and placement. Everything went normal. The artist started the stencil and laid it on the man's arm. About halfway through lining it, the man's phone rang. He apologized and stepped outside to take the call, left the artist alone with his arm and the half-finished outline. The artist swears the stencil shifted while the man was gone. Not smudged, but shifted. The eyes in the portrait outline turned to look at him. He blinked, shook his head, and told himself he was tired. But when the man came back and sat down, the paper reference photo on the table had slid a few inches closer to the edge, like someone had nudged it. He kept working, shading, filling in. The more he worked, the less the face on the arm looked like the happy girl in the photo. It got gone, hollow-eyed, the mouth open like a scream. When he wiped the ink at the end, he saw the expression had changed completely. The client looked down at his arm, got pale, and asked quietly, "You saw that, right?" He said his daughter had died a year before. This was supposed to be a memorial. The artist tried to correct the tattoo, but every time he added shading or highlights, the expression would shift again, sometimes crying, sometimes grimacing, sometimes eyes shut tight. Finally, the man said, "Leave it. I think she's telling me something." He paid and left without another word. About a month later, the artist got a plain envelope in the mail. Inside was a photo of the man's arm. The tattoo's mouth had closed. Underneath, in small script, new letters had appeared. No one had tattooed them. It said, "Let me go." The artist keeps that envelope in a drawer that he doesn't open often. He tells the story like a confession. He's not sure if the ink did it or the man's grief did it or something else entirely. All he knows is he's never taken another portrait commission of a child since.